It is now my great pleasure to bring up to the podium here Edo Frankel, who is a conductor, a pianist, and you heard him last night tinkling the ivories on the harpsichord, if there are ivories, in the Rake's Progress. Edo, welcome to the Ojai broadcast, the live stream.
My pleasure, thank you
So
very
happy to have
much.
you here. So let's start with, what's your take on Ojai, the festival, the atmosphere, the people, the audience?
It's a utopian, magical place. I have to say, Tom Morris, when we spoke on the phone ages ago, it feels like now, he spoke to me about the audiences here, about the environment, about the connection you feel with really the whole ecosystem. And nothing he could have said could have prepared me for how integrated I feel being here. It's really remarkable. The attention that you get from audience members, the kinds of probing questions that from which I learned quite a bit, actually. And it's just an incredibly collaborative, welcoming, and sophisticatedly touching environment.
So this year's festival director is Barbara Hannigan.
Indeed.
And what is your relationship with her and your collaborations over the years? Or
Sure. So Barbara and I met, I guess it's about 2 years ago, almost exactly. We met when I saw an ad for EQ, and there was no mention of conductors or composers or pianists, but with, you know, the chutzpah that a New York Jewish boy has, I decided I was just gonna send an email anyway, and I said, hey, love what you do, admire you, respect you as a performing artist, as a singer, as a conductor, as an advocate for contemporary and historical music. Would love to work with you at some point. I don't remember if I received if I didn't receive an email or if I got an email that said thank you so much. You know, and then sometime later I was working as a pianist in one of these opera festivals in Italy someplace, and I happened to see that she was working at the Ruhr Festival, and I said, oh, when I'm done here I'll just go hang out, and I would love to see some of her rehearsals. So I wrote to her and I said, may I come see your rehearsals? And she said, actually, would you like to be my rehearsal pianist for the Satie project I'm doing?
There you go.
The pianist I'm working with can't make it. And so, of course, I said, yeah, sure.
Yes?
Yes, sure. And so, and the rest is history. It went well, and we stayed in touch, and I'm very grateful to her and to Tom Morris for the invitation.
So last night we heard you in the Rake's Progress on the harpsichord.
Yes.
It's an interesting thing to have a harpsichord in a modern opera, and especially the note content. You know, it's not what we're used to hearing on the harpsichord. Can you talk about that part and that production?
Sure. Well, I think it's no secret that Stravinsky, throughout his career, was looking simultaneously to the future and to the past, and finding himself and what music meant and what strategies to employ when composing. And this is very evident throughout Rake's Progress, as well as the pieces that he was composing around the same time. Just after Rake's Progress, he writes the septet, which I believe is his first serial composition.
Right.
First true serial composition,
It's the transition piece.
It's a transition piece. And so, in Rake, in a sense, we really hear Stravinsky experimenting with voice leading the way, one tone leads to another, with harmonies, dissonances that we have grown accustomed to Stravinsky, but he does it in a very sophisticated way. And in the harpsichord, in particular, you actually see a physicalization, let's say, of his hexachoral rotation system that he uses so much later, right? Where he takes one tone and he moves it over this way, and then he builds chords with it also. And so actually you see how, and you can't see it because I'm on the table right now, but you see how, like, as you're playing, the same notes are played but in a different order, and you kind of move around like that. And you get these really incredible dissonances. To that end, I think, and this is the story I've grown familiar with, is he saw a production of Puritani, I believe, or one of the bel canto operas. He said, that's what I want to do. I want to write me a bel canto opera. And instead, what he did was do what he did best, which is write basically a neoclassical opera with touches of bel canto, touches of Mozart, touches of Rossini. And in that we have a lot of references to 18th and early 19th century opera, the use of continuo. And it's very clear, I think, that he was aware of the role of the continuo player as sort of the silent, non-speaking character in the opera, right? Having played a bit of continuo and having conducted a couple myself, you can't wait for the chance to really let loose, to really be that character. And I think Stravinsky went the extra mile and instead just said, you know, I'm just going to write this in.
Right.
And he's going to, the harpsichord is going to be the magic. It's going to be the part that's the fable, right? You are the incarnation of Nick's magic. You bring all of the otherworldliness.
Right, the
from
card
opera.
scene with Nick Shine at the end. That
That's
was the big
That's
trio.
It. That's right.
That was awesome.
Yeah.
And it made this great intimacy to the scene as well, with just you three going at it. It was amazing.
That's right, yeah.
So you've been also touring with this production, is that correct?
That's right. My start was in rehearsals just before our Philharmonie in Paris production. That's right.
So tomorrow, you're going to put your other hat on.
That's right.
Your conducting hat.
My conducting hat.
Yes, your conducting hat.
Yeah, okay.
And we're going to hear first on our stream a 420 playback of the Rachmaninoff Isle of the Dead.
Fantastic.
In this arrangement. And there's a history here of arranging big orchestral works for smaller orchestras and playing it here. We did it 2 years ago, Rite of Spring, actually, which is really cool.
Very interesting.
So tell us about this piece and about the arrangement.
Sure.
The piece first, actually.
Well, sure. Well, Isle of the Dead is a fascinating piece by Rachmaninoff. I think really one of his great orchestral masterpieces. Really makes great use of late romantic use of texture, interweaving harmonies, these kind of long, languishing lines that seemingly are endless, but are so beautiful and so palpable, you can't help but fall in love with the music. The piece itself actually came to pass, evidently, from Rachmaninoff seeing a print of this famous painting, right? But evidently it wasn't the actual painting that we know of the same title, Isle of the Dead. Do you remember the artist's name? I can't remember.
Not right now,
Yeah.
but tomorrow I will.
Look online if I can't, the name escapes
Google
me
it
at the
right
moment.
now.
Yeah, Die Totenseele. And this artist made many versions of this. But Rachmaninoff never actually, at that time, don't quote me on the year, I want to say 1907 or something. He didn't actually see the colored painting.
Right,
What
the black
he
and
saw,
white.
He saw the black and white one. And so, hence we have these really incredible contrasts of darkness and light. And when he did eventually see it, I believe, don't quote me, it was in Philadelphia after conducting the piece himself with the Philadelphia Orchestra. I think he saw the painting, someone showed it to him, and he said, well, I wouldn't have written the music at all had I seen this. This is not, it was massively disappointed. So that's the piece. It's quite remarkable. Now, everyone likes to talk about the image itself, the boat on the water, right? And they like to talk about the man dragging the coffin onto the island. But it's interesting, because the technique of painting, it's very reminiscent of a Caspar David Friedrich kind of thing, where it's about perspective. It's about the person viewing, right? It drags us into the perspective of the protagonist, right? Kind of forcibly. And so we've taken a different kind of interpretation of the piece, looking at, really, it's Rachmaninoff we're seeing, right? It's Rachmaninoff in this moment of existential awareness of himself, looking into the inevitable end of oneself and examining. And so the opening chords, this kind of pulsating thing in the harp and in the bass, in our bass drum, it's really just his pulse, which begins this whole tumultuous ride into an existential torrent.
Right. And do you find that with this reduced orchestration that you've learned something new about the inner workings of the piece?
Absolutely. Well, to begin with, I think the orchestration, which is so lush and beautiful, and again emblematic of 19th century late Romanticism, you feel this cloud wash over you, and you feel this weight. And with the chamber version, you can't help but give more freedom to the flow of the music, so that the pacing changes. It really becomes a chamber piece. It's more colorful. Suddenly you hear lines as counterpoint, whereas before it was an immersive texture. And here we have such incredible talents in the players of Ludwig, with such gifts and opinions to share ideas, right? So we've really encouraged each other to give all of ourselves to each of our individual lines as solos, and they really emerge from the texture. It's really made it actually, interestingly, more intimate, and draws, I think, the listener in a bit more than, let's say, an orchestral mass. As beautiful as I find the original orchestral version.
So then after that piece,
Yes.
you are conducting Mark Anthony Turnage's Twice Through the Heart with Kate Howden.
What a piece.
Singing.
What a singer.
So tell us about this piece and about Kate.
Yeah, well, the piece is about a woman who went to prison after murdering her husband in self-defense. And at the time, there were no laws in England to protect women from this sort of unfortunate and tragic situation of domestic violence that she was suffering for a long time. And so Mark Anthony Turnage brilliantly sets this text in a almost classically monodramatic way, in the spirit of, let's say, Schoenberg, to say nothing of his late teacher, Oliver Knussen.
Right.
And really captures the angst, the passion, but also the longing and the tragedy of it all. And Kate and I, we examined the text very closely. We found all kinds of interesting details. It really has become for us a solo opera. And we hope the vibrancy of our work translates to the audience.
And have you worked with Kate before, or is this the first time?
Our first time working together was, I guess the rehearsals for this. We performed for the first time together just yesterday on the Monteverdi, which was
great.
Which was terrific. Addio Roma, which was
At the
beautifully
Ojai
sung.
Talks.
At the Ojai Talks, that's
Yes.
right. But we, I have to say, it's really, star-crossed partners. I have to, we are collaborating in such an organic, natural way. It's so wonderful to work with people who have such strong convictions, who share them so openly, and we really give each other plenty of room to let each other be ourselves.
So you are also involved with one more concert here, actually a few other things.
That's right,
But
that's
a
right.
big involvement
Yeah.
with the Rites of Passage Folk
Indeed.
Songs Around the World, which is on tomorrow evening at 7:30 p.m.
That's right.
What is this concert?
So this concert came about when we in the Equilibrium project received an email from Barbara Hannigan saying, hey, who would like to curate a concert at Ojai? And Fleur Barron, the wonderful...
Baba the Turk last night in The Rake's Progress.
That's right. We both raised our digital hands and we said, I'd like to. So, and then from there, Barbara invited us to submit folk songs, each one of us individually, songs that we grew up with that are close to our heart, close to our background. And it was only in April that Fleur and I actually got together and we said, okay, well, let's look at this and let's figure out what kind of program we can make.
And important to note, too, that the Equilibrium artists are an international group of people.
Oh, yes.
So there's literally one person from every country.
From every country. It's actually staggering, the amount of diversity in the group and in the music as a result.
So you had these pieces.
We have these pieces, and so then we got together, we organized them, we kind of made up a little story to go along with it, starting with a marriage that falls apart, and then the building back of oneself again, and then we decided that I would arrange these into kind of little compositions, kind of in the spirit of, let's say, Stravinsky's Pulcinella, which retains the identity of all of those Italian songs, but around it, the counterpoint, the harmony, the instrumentation is all up for grabs. And so the project didn't stop there. Once we arrived here, the input from everyone was inspiring, phenomenal, and together we've built this program now, along with also these Ludwig players who are playing alongside us, to really give you a tour of culture, of history, of self in a very primal, authentic way.
And so how are you choosing what instruments to arrange for? I know it says piano in the program, but also Ludwig's involved as well.
That's right. That's right.
So you were just...
So I didn't know what was available to me.
Oh.
And very gradually I got word that, we will have a clarinet player interested, we will have a violinist interested, maybe you can have some percussion. And so it was a very gradual, again, collaborative process, which I think is very unusual, actually. And that's something really, I think, special about this place, that such a working environment can thrive, where you are really working as a team to make something. And as a result, all of what you see in the audience actually is the culmination of the diverse perspectives that is there, and because of that, it just elevates the work that we do and the artistic product as a result.
Right. If that wasn't enough, you're still doing one more
That's
thing.
right.
You are playing piano in Girl Crazy, yes?
I'm playing, and also I have one speaking part in the facade.
You were speaking as well?
Yeah, I have
okay.
yeah.
So I got to ask a question about the Girl Crazy.
Yes.
What is it like to follow someone who's also the soloist?
Oh, I mean, to have someone who's so in touch with making sound is just the most natural thing that can be in music. Someone who knows both and does at the same time with exquisite precision. The feeling of making music and also understanding the intellectual side of organizing it in real time. I mean, there's nothing more natural to me than that.
Well, Edo, thank you so much for
My
stopping
pleasure.
in. We'll get back to your seat for the second half.
thing.
Thank you so much.
My pleasure.